The real draft is the one that begins tomorrow night. Are you completely sick of talking about it yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like it's gone every year. It feels like, we can't pack more time into this, but somehow we do. And look, part of it is that the Patriots are so lousy toward the end of the year. We were doing draft stories in look, I was writing stories on Will Campbell in like November.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason why that it feels like it's gone so long. But there's also the great uncertainty about this. And look, you guys know this, Michael, you can talk to this, that there's so much uncertainty around this year's draft for the Patriots because last year you knew they're going to take a quarterback. Years before, it's like they're picking in the teens, the 20s. They didn't have a pick. It was just the best player available. Now there's so much uncertainty when it comes to what the Patriots are going to do. Although it feels like right now we're riding the Will Campbell Express.
Okay, so Christopher, let me ask you this because I'm not surprised that you were identifying left tackle as a position of need for the Patriots as early as November of last year. Was the offensive line as bad as you thought it was going to be throughout the season, or were there times when you thought, you know what, it's not quite the horror show I thought it was going to be?
No, it was bad. It was bad. It was absolutely look.
Worse than
the
he thought.
phrase, Hardy, look, man, the phrase I've used over the last couple of years is specific to last year, actually. The offensive line was apocalyptically bad. And you go back to the start of the 2023 season, you'd think that, okay, look, Adrian Clem is coming in here, or 2024. Adrian Clem gets sick. They have the illness for the first free agent that Bill Belichick signed as a couple of years ago is Calvin Anderson. He gets malaria. Adrian Clem gets sick. They have just an absolutely horrible run of bad injuries. And last year didn't help because the offensive line coach, his rather dogmatic approach to teaching, I think rubbed a lot of the veterans the wrong way. And so you had that sort of clash as well. And so, look, for a team that had the same offensive line coach, going back 20 years, I think part of this is karma. But look, they've had 5 offensive line coaches in the last 5 years. They just need some sort of stability. I'm talking across the board. They just need some sort of stability in place for that position, especially when you talk about a young quarterback like Drake Maye.
Okay, I don't want him to draft Will Campbell. I'll just say that right now. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
I want something exciting. So tell me, quarterback aside, a draft pick at number 4 for the Patriots that would both excite you and stun you. What? Oh, my God. I can't believe the New England Patriots just selected fill in the blank.
If Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are there?
They're gone. They're gone.
They're gone.
Because you'll take one of those guys.
Ashton Jeanty.
Okay.
And that would excite you. Running back.
My colleague Ben Volen wrote about this, and I think he may have convinced me that he would be the guy who would, I think, surprise a lot of people, excite a lot of people. Look, he was the best offensive skill position player in college football last year, and the Patriots need offensive skill position players in the worst possible way. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily an overwhelming need, given the fact that Ramondre Stevenson has done fairly well over the course of his career. You have Antonio Gibson and the Patriots. And look, I know that this is a new regime, but the Patriots have always considered running backs fungible. There's a reason that Bill Belichick never had the same guy run for 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. It was just rotate him through. And so I don't think they would necessarily be all that excited about using such high-value draft capital on a running back at number 4, especially in this day and age. But Ashton Jeanty would be the guy who would really surprise me, excite me, and you could take a look at him and say, I can see how he might fit in this offense.
How concerned are you? Because I think most of us expect that it will be Will Campbell. How concerned should we really be about him and his kangaroo arms?
I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. Look, he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. He is. He's the best pure offensive lineman in the draft. And so you take him and you start him at left tackle. And if he can't play left tackle, you move him into guard and you still have an upgrade over what you had at this point last year. So you feel relatively good about acquiring a guy like that, and I think that's the ultimate position of need for them, offensive line, as we just talked about, and he's the best offensive lineman out there. And so I think there's a natural marriage between the two. Again, it's not a very sexy pick. It's not a very exciting pick. It's not going to sell a whole lot of season tickets, but the flip side is you get a guy who is an absolute, who's an absolute fills an absolute area you need on your roster.
Well, see, this is the problem. This is why I don't want them to draft him, because that phrase you said, it just bothers me. Now, if you said he's the best lineman in the draft, now I'm getting excited. It is a little sexy. This is hotel room in Cranston sexy. Okay, all right. He's the best offensive lineman in the draft, but then you said if he can't play tackle, wait a minute. I'm picking fourth. And there's a possibility that the guy I pick can't play the position I picked him to play. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's completely fair. And this is why this is such not a lousy draft, but the 4 spot is such a horrible spot to be in this year for this team. If they had moved up a couple, if Joe Milton hadn't played as well as he played in the season finale, we're sitting here talking about Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I think that they want to trade down out of 4, but I think it's going to be next to impossible. I heard Mike Reese on this show yesterday talking about how, it only takes one team. I think it would be extraordinary if some team offered them, whether it's the Raiders at 6 or, you call up the Cowboys and I know the Cowboys really want Ashton Jeanty, and you try and engage them in a conversation about Ashton Jeanty, and you take their 12 and you move back and you can still get an offensive lineman, and then maybe you get another second or third pick. Somewhere along the way. But look, I think I will say this, like I said, it's going to be tough to move back out of 4. I think it's going to be easier to move up out of 38. You have 38, you have 69, 77, and I think 106. So you can use some combination of those picks to maybe get back into the back end of the first round.
Okay, so we're talking about the fact that we don't expect Carter or Hunter to be there in order for that to happen. It seems most plausibly that the Giants are still thinking about things, and they're looking at their quarterback situation. And this is what Alex Barth was, I think, trying to convince himself of as much as me and everyone else, that the Giants are still having this conversation. Christopher Price, do you believe the Giants are still having a conversation about drafting Shedeur Sanders?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Can you explain it to me? Because I still don't get it. I mean,
you don't think he can play?
I think you have 2 guys there that you have the same level of belief that can play to the same level right now in Russell Wilson.
Those guys
and
are done.
And Jameis Winston.
I agree with you, Michael. Both of those guys are done. And then the other thing, too, you have to think about the Giants. The Giants could plausibly figure out a way to get, and the name that I keep hearing associated with the Giants is Jackson Dart. Now, not Jackson Dart at number 3, but maybe Jackson Dart at the start of the second round. So if you're the Giants, you can say, well, maybe we'll wait and get our guy at the start of day 2. So the Giants are the wild card in this whole process. I think, honestly, the Giants could be bullied into taking Shedeur Sanders. And, look, it's New York. It's bright lights. It's the son of prime. You got all of those great storylines associated with it that would seem to make an awful lot of sense. You also have to think about, look, Brian Daboll, those guys are coaching for their lives right now. That front office, if they swing and miss on this thing, it's going to be their ass at the end of the day. And so they have to make absolutely sure. So I think that goes into the conversation, too, when you talk about the Giants, if they're still having those conversations. I don't think the Patriots are going to be trading up to 3 or 2, as some people have hoped as well. So, look, there's a lot to think about when it comes to the Giants in this year's draft.
If it were to happen, okay, and you've got either Hunter or Abdul Carter available to you, this is the part that makes my head really, really hurt. Then I start thinking, we still need a left tackle. You got to take one of those guys. But what are you going to do? Will Campbell's going to go to someone else. He's certainly not going to be there by the time you, even if you trade up out of that pick number 38, someone's going to grab him before that. So what would they end up doing at left tackle?
There's going to be a run on guys toward the end of the first round. The Josh Connerleys. I think Banks is going to be there probably middle of first round. Simmons. There's a handful of those next tier offensive tackles, you don't want to talk about this either, but there's still some remainders left in the bargain bin out there in free agency.
Yes.
Nothing that would really kind of, light your fire. But
shopping at Target, baby.
For some reason,
that's exactly what you want to do. You want to stop at Target to get a protection plan for your young quarterback, right? So
I got a coupon here. Hello.
But for Holley, this is weird because for you, I can tell. To you, that excites you, and you think of that as sexy way more so than picking without question, the best offensive lineman in the draft at 4. No, if you can get one of those other guys, let's go bargain hunting.
That's right, 'cause-
for a guy in the second round.
Because as Christopher knows, he covers the team, Price, what is it? 3 offensive line coaches that the Patriots have, Doug Marrone and like 2 well-regarded assistant offensive line coaches.
Yeah.
So they got all these offensive line coaches. Offensive line coaches look at talent and say, give him to me. I can work with him. It's not just the individual. I can put him with 4 other guys. We can make this work. And so you don't necessarily need a top 5 pick to have a better offensive line in New England. But let me ask you this. Who's your favorite, and I know everybody has them, a guy like this. Who's your favorite guy in the draft? Like we all fall in love with a player. Like, oh, this is my guy. Who have you studied and you say, God, I love this player?
An under the radar guy, or
Yeah.
like one of the.
Yeah, under the radar.
I like Isaac TeSlaa, wide receiver at Arkansas. He's a day 2 guy. You know, he transferred from like community college, and he kind of worked his way up, and he put up some great numbers the last couple of years for Arkansas. Just a really talented wide receiver who can do an awful lot of things for you. Not a day 1 guy, you know, a borderline day 2 guy. But I was doing Chris Hogan and I do a podcast. We had Eric at home from NFL.com on, and he just raved about this kid. And I went back and I looked at him, and he checks a lot of boxes. He's not a number 1 wide receiver, but he is a guy who can give you an awful lot of depth at the position, steady, dependable, consistent. Just, again, a lot to like about this kid.
All right, Christopher Price, what are you going to be tasked with over the next couple of days here? Just essentially rewriting what you've written, or is
Well, you know, Michael, you do a lot of pre-writes at this stage. You do a lot of, the Patriots have selected Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick, and so you have that ready to go when that comes out. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, and you spike it, and you move on to the next thing. But yeah, there's a lot of preparation at this point. There's a lot of preparing for all sorts of hypothetical scenarios, trade downs, trade ups. Bringing Will Campbell in for, to show him off on Friday morning, what that's going to look like. So there's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of getting ready for really 3 awfully long days on the NFL calendar.
All right. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, as always. Christopher Price of the Boston Globe. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Like I said.
Take care, guys.
Okay, we'll see you.
If you like that clip, and how could you not? Check out more videos from Toucher and Hardy here. Point slightly up and to the left. For more Patriots analysis and opinion, hit this playlist. Point slightly down and to the left. And for the latest from the Sports Hub, download at 985thesportshub.com.